Everyone knew him simply as Kofi. In the pre-dawn stillness, the metallic gray of the dumpsters contrasted sharply with the deep wrinkles on his tired face. He was an invisible part of the neighborhood, a mundane fixture of the morning routine. On his back, he carried a worn-out backpack, bearing the weight of years and discarded scraps of paper. His journey from Ghana's vibrant green forests to this cold concrete labyrinth was evident in every step he took. The neighborhood children would sometimes whisper or even shout "Paperman Kofi" and run away as they passed him on their way to school. Kofi would simply bow his head, his face showing not offense, but a profound understanding mixed with sadness. He knew the prejudice and ignorance behind their actions. This was nothing new to him. Years ago, he had experienced much crueler events. Now, he just tried to preserve his patience and his dignity. Kofi lived in a small, nearly forgotten shack in a hidden corner of the city. It was surrounded by items he had collected, but could never bring himself to throw away, much like himself. But amidst this clutter, on a small table, stood a gleaming old photo frame. Inside was a family photo from his youth in Ghana, a smiling family. This photograph was everything to him, a window to the past, and the only memory he clung to for the future. That morning, as usual, he arrived at the street with the wealthiest homes. The trash here was often more valuable: half-unread magazines, old letters, even sometimes discarded but still functioning small electronics. Just then, a luxurious black car sped past him, almost hitting him and splashing him with mud from a puddle. Kofi barely kept his balance. The car stopped a few houses down in front of an ostentatious villa. The man who got out, with his expensive suit and confident posture, was none other than Mr. Henderson. Mr. Henderson was a real estate developer, rapidly rising in the city, infamous for his ruthlessness. He would work mercilessly to acquire any land he set his eyes on, no matter who lived on it. And now, he had set his sights on the land where Kofi's shack stood. This was the perfect spot for his new luxury condominium project. As Henderson got out of his car, he spotted Kofi in the distance. An expression of open disgust appeared on his face. He took a few steps towards him and shouted, raising his voice, "You, look at me," he yelled. "I see you on these streets every day. You're bringing down the property values. I want you and that filthy shack off this land immediately. Do you understand me?" Kofi looked up at Henderson. His eyes showed neither fear nor anger, only a deep, meaningful calmness. This was a reaction Henderson had not expected. He anticipated submission from this old, poor man, not this kind of serenity. Without saying a word, Kofi adjusted his backpack and continued walking. This silence infuriated Henderson even more. "Are you mocking me? I'll have you evicted. I swear, if you don't want trouble, you'll get out of here soon," he shouted after him. But Kofi was already walking away. Henderson's threats echoed and faded in his ears. However, something that had been dormant inside Kofi for years stirred slightly with this encounter. In his bag were documents he had found that morning, in an old envelope discarded in Henderson's office trash. The papers suggested Henderson was planning illegal ways to seize this land. Kofi didn't yet fully understand what it was, but his instincts told him these scraps of paper were very important. That evening, back in his shack, Henderson's threats nagged at his mind. But what truly preoccupied him wasn't the mysterious documents in his bag. His mind was on an inheritance and a secret his father had entrusted to him years ago in Ghana, and the oath he had sworn. This secret was related to the Henderson family, and Kofi was obliged to reveal it only at the right time, in the right way, because that secret was the foundation of everything Henderson owned, and if revealed, it could turn everything upside down. Kofi looked at his photograph and sighed deeply. Storm clouds were gathering. Mr. Henderson thought he was just trying to evict a poor old man, but there was something he didn't know yet. Kofi wasn't just a recycler. He was also the guardian of a secret that held the destiny of the Henderson family. And the weight of this secret was far more valuable than all of Henderson's wealth. And right at that moment, there was a hard knock on the wooden door of his shack. The knocking was insistent, heavy with impatience. Kofi didn't need to ask who it was. He slowly rose from his stool, his joints protesting with a quiet ache that spoke of long years and hard labor. He opened the door to reveal Mr. Henderson, silhouetted against the fading evening light, flanked by two men in dark suits who radiated a silent, intimidating authority. "Still here?" Henderson sneered, not bothering with a greeting. He glanced past Kofi into the dim, cluttered interior of the shack, his nose wrinkling in distaste. "I thought I made myself clear this morning. This is your last warning. I'm filing the official eviction papers tomorrow. Be gone by the end of the week, or things will get unpleasant." He took a step forward, trying to loom over Kofi, but the old man stood his ground, his calm gaze unwavering. This defiance, this silent strength, was maddening to Henderson. "Do you have nothing to say for yourself?" he barked. Kofi finally spoke, his voice low and steady, carrying a quiet dignity that seemed to fill the small space. "This land is my home, Mr. Henderson. It is all I have." "Home?" Henderson laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. "This is a junkyard. You're squatting on prime real estate. You have no legal claim." One of the men behind him shifted, pulling a folded document from his briefcase. Henderson snatched it and thrust it toward Kofi. "Notice of intent to demolish. Read it if you can." Kofi looked at the paper, but did not take it. His mind was not on the legal threat, but on the older, more profound truth he carried. "Legality," Kofi said softly, "is sometimes different from what is right, and sometimes the papers that matter most are not the ones carried by lawyers." Henderson stared at him, confused and irritated by the old man's cryptic words. He was about to issue another threat when his eyes fell on the small table, on the pristine photo frame standing out amidst the clutter. For a fleeting second, something in the photograph caught his attention, a familiar backdrop, a building he had seen in old family albums. He shook his head, dismissing it as a trick of the light or his imagination. This was getting him nowhere. "1 week," Henderson spat, jabbing a finger in the air. "Then I'll personally watch this dump be bulldozed into dust." He turned on his heel, his associates following, and they strode back to their sleek car, leaving Kofi standing in the doorway. The encounter left Kofi more resolved than fearful. Henderson's mention of legal papers had solidified his need to understand the documents he had found. He closed the door and went to his backpack, carefully retrieving the crumpled envelope from Henderson's office trash. Under the soft glow of a single bare bulb, he smoothed out the pages. They were dense with legal jargon, but the intent was clear: plans for a forced acquisition, references to zoning law variances obtained through questionable means, and a timeline that was aggressively short. It was a blueprint of corruption. But it was the final page, a seemingly innocuous appendix listing previous ownership claims, that made Kofi's breath catch. There, typed in faint ink, was a name he hadn't seen or heard in decades. Kwabena Mensah, his father. A wave of memories washed over him. His father, a respected community leader in their Ghanaian village, dealing with a young, ambitious British entrepreneur named Reginald Henderson, Mr. Henderson's grandfather. There had been a business agreement, a partnership based on trust for the export of valuable timber. Reginald had taken the initial shipment back to England, promising to return with payment and to formalize the partnership. He never returned, The betrayal had broken Kwabena Mensah, financially and spiritually. The family's prosperity had crumbled, leading Kofi to eventually seek a new life elsewhere, carrying with him the shame of that betrayal and a box of his father's papers as the only proof of what was rightfully theirs. Kofi had vowed to his dying father that he would one day clear the family's name. He had come to this country, Henderson's country, not just as an immigrant seeking a better life, but as a man on a silent mission of redemption. He had never found the right moment, the right proof, until now. These modern documents, combined with the aged, fragile papers he kept hidden in a tin box under his floorboards, formed a damning chain of evidence. It showed a pattern of deceit, stretching back 3 generations. The wealth Henderson was so proud of was built on a stolen foundation. The following days were a whirlwind of quiet activity for Kofi. While Henderson's lawyers filed their motions, Kofi, who everyone saw as just a simple recycler, was undertaking his own form of research. He used the small savings he had painstakingly accumulated over the years to visit a copy shop and make pristine copies of all the documents, both the new ones from the trash and the ancient, yellowed letters from his father. He found the address of a reputable human rights lawyer who specialized in historical injustices, a woman named Miss Evelyn Reed, whose name he had seen in a discarded newspaper. He wrote a careful, clear letter, explaining his story in simple terms and enclosing the copies. He did not go to her office himself. The fear of being turned away at the door was too great. Instead, he mailed the thick envelope, trusting the system he had so little faith in until now. Then, he waited. He continued his rounds, collecting paper, enduring the occasional taunts, all while carrying the immense weight of the secret that was about to explode. A week later, just as Henderson's demolition deadline was looming, a different car pulled up outside Kofi's shack. It was not a luxury sedan, but a modest, professional-looking vehicle. A woman with a sharp, intelligent face and a determined expression stepped out. It was Miss Evelyn Reed. She held the envelope Kofi had sent. "Mr. Mensah?" she asked, her voice respectful. The use of his real family name, a name he hadn't heard in so long, sent a shiver down his spine. He nodded, inviting her inside. Meanwhile, at his downtown high-rise office, Mr. Henderson was feeling triumphant. The court had approved the eviction. The bulldozers were scheduled for the next morning. He was celebrating with a glass of expensive whiskey when his assistant buzzed him, her voice nervous. "Mr. Henderson, there's a Miss Evelyn Reed here to see you. She says it's urgent, concerning the Oak Creek property." Annoyed, Henderson told his assistant to send her in. He expected a last-ditch legal maneuver, something he could easily crush. Miss Reed entered, her demeanor calm but firm. She placed a folder on his desk. "I represent Mr. Kofi Mensah," she began. Henderson scoffed. "That old recycler? He can't afford you. This is a waste of my time." "I suggest you look at the documents, Mr. Henderson," she replied, her voice icy. "This isn't just about an eviction. This is about the fraudulent foundation of your family's entire fortune, starting with your grandfather, Reginald Henderson." Henderson's smirk vanished. He opened the folder. As he read, his face paled. Page after page laid out the story. The original agreement with Kwabena Mensah, the stolen timber, the subsequent cover-up, and the direct link to the capital his grandfather had used to start the family business. It was all there, in black and white, a history of theft he knew nothing about. The modern documents Kofi had found showed his own attempts to use similar underhanded tactics, proving the apple hadn't fallen far from the tree. This is nonsense. Ancient history," Henderson blustered. But the confidence had drained from his voice. He knew the reputational damage alone would be catastrophic. The media would feast on this story. Billionaire's empire, built on stolen African resources. The statute of limitations on the original theft may have expired, Miss Reed said coolly. But the ongoing possession of property obtained through fraud and your own attempts to illegally seize the land where the rightful heir currently resides are very much current legal issues. My client is prepared to go public. He doesn't necessarily want your money, Mr. Henderson. He wants the truth to be known. He wants his father's name cleared. Henderson sank into his leather chair, the whiskey turning sour in his stomach. He had thought he was fighting a feeble old man. Instead, he had been confronting his own family's ghosts. The man he had looked down upon, the paper collector, held the power to dismantle everything he had. The next morning, the bulldozers did not come. Instead, a humbled Mr. Henderson arrived at Kofi's shack alone. The arrogant swagger was gone. He looked like a man who had not slept. Kofi was outside, sorting through his collection. Henderson. Kofi acknowledged him, his tone neutral. I've seen the papers, Henderson began, struggling to find the words. I had no idea. My grandfather, he never spoke of it. Kofi simply watched him, his expression unreadable. What do you want? Henderson finally asked, the question tasting like ash. Kofi looked around at his small shack, then back at Henderson. I told you, this is my home. I want to live the rest of my days here, in peace. And I want a public acknowledgement from you of what your grandfather did, a restoration of my family's honor. The money, it is too late for that, but honor that you can still return. It was not the revenge one might have expected. It was a plea for simple justice and dignity. Henderson, for the first time, saw not a poor immigrant to be pitied or despised, but a man of profound strength and integrity. He nodded, a slow, reluctant gesture of defeat and the beginnings of understanding. The story made headlines, but not in the scandalous way Henderson had feared. It was portrayed as a powerful tale of redemption and historical justice. Henderson, under legal and moral duress, made a public statement acknowledging his grandfather's actions and the debt owed to the Mensah family. He established a scholarship in Kwabena Mensah's name for Ghanaian students studying environmental conservation. Kofi remained in his shack, which was now legally his. He became something of a local legend, but he never changed his simple ways. He still collected paper, but now people looked at him with respect, even awe. The children no longer taunted him. Instead, they would sometimes bring him old newspapers, and he would reward them with a kind smile and a piece of candy. He had won, not with wealth or power, but with truth, patience, and the unbreakable strength of a spirit that had refused to be crushed. The recycler had not just saved his home, he had reclaimed a legacy and taught a powerful man the true meaning of value. And in the quiet of his shack, the photograph of his smiling family seemed to gleam just a little brighter, finally at peace.